Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder Second Edition and the Path Builder app. This week, we frolic through the foliage and flora to find our featured full build for a flowering, photosynthetic fellow, the Swamp Thing. Before we can begin branching out into this build, we need to put down some roots. Swamp Thing's history is admittedly a little complicated. It's probably best to start with what he is. A giant plant man who serves as a guardian of the green, the elemental force of plants. Originally, Alec Holland, a brilliant botanist and chemist, was meant to be the next avatar of the green, but met an untimely demise, leading to the floral forces infusing his memories into a form woven of foliage, the Swamp Thing. Made of plant life, he can alter his own physiology, survives through photosynthesis, and heals from what would otherwise be lethal wounds. He is able to control other plants and foliage in a nearly unlimited myriad of ways, including traveling through them, growing simple copies of himself, and even causing microflora in a person to grow rampant inside them, killing them from within. With the seeds of this build sown, it is time to start reaping, which of course starts with the ancestry, background, and class for this burly birch whose bark is certainly worse than his bite. We take a break from all the humans I've been building to make use of the Goran ancestry, the first time I've ever done so. The Ardande heritage is also a first, and ties the Swamp Thing even closer to plants and the elements. The Ancient Memories ancestry feat represents the memories of Alec Holland partially buried within the mind of the Swamp Thing. With his deep connection to the green and its forces, Swamp Thing will use the elementally infused background, obviously selecting the wood element. This makes him trained in the Plane of Wood lore, while also granting him the root reading cantrip, letting him tap into plants to learn about the passings of others through the area. When it comes to the Swamp Thing's class, he will be a single gate kineticist dedicated to the element of wood, a phytokineticist, if you will. With only a single gate, he gains 2 impulses and a kineticist feat. This allows him to take Hail of Splinters for some area damage, Hardwood Armor to give him some modicum of defense, and then Timber Sentinel to protect himself and allies, creating simplified versions of himself to ward off foes. As a kineticist, he is automatically trained in nature, and also becomes trained in acrobatics, athletics, intimidation, and survival. He'll focus on constitution as a kineticist, but will also try to keep his strength and wisdom as high as he can. Within the comics, this Swamp Thing is superhumanly strong, and wisdom will play a mechanical factor in this build. At second level, he can take kinetic activation, which will allow him to use scrolls, wands, and staves with spells that have the wood trait. Additional lore for plant lore helps to represent Alec Holland's studies as a botanist, giving him a scaling skill. The Swamp Thing heals quickly, which will initially be represented through fast recovery as his general feat at 3rd level, which will also give him a skill increase that he can apply to nature, bumping it up to expert. Starting off strong in wisdom allows Swamp Thing to take the druid dedication at 4th level, selecting the leaf order given his connection to the green. This makes him trained in diplomacy and occultism, and also gives him 2 cantrips. The 2 related to plants and such are Tanglevine and Timber, though as a druid he can technically prepare any of them each day. Just like our last skill feat, he'll take additional lore for fungus lore, though this could possibly be skipped for something like natural medicine, since I think fungi actually fall out of the purview of the green. By 5th level, this titan of trunks, tangles, and tubers can take tree speech, so that he can directly talk to and communicate with the Parliament of Trees. He also receives a Gates Threshold, giving him the opportunity to expand the portal because while this tremendous tree has wielded other elemental powers in the past, it was always brief. So, as a bit of a spoiler, this will be my first fully single element kineticist. He can take fresh produce to demonstrate the more restorative properties of nature, as well as a critical blast for wood to entangle enemies in vines and roots. A skill increase sees Swamp Thing become expert in athletics. Level 6 grants him basic druid spellcasting. At this level, this grants him a 1st and 2nd rank spell, which has a number of good options. For the former, I'm a fan of Flourishing Flora for some area damage that can manifest a spread of plants, or Wooden Fist to let him start laying into enemies with his bare hands. At 2nd rank, I'm a fan of Entangling Flora, which creates a nice burst of difficult terrain, and then has effects to slow people down on top of that. Given how versed the Swamp Thing is in the natural world, he'll take Assurance for Nature as a skill feat, which does help set him up for another feat down the line. Toughness as a general feat at 7th level plays into the Swamp Thing's supernatural durability, and a skill increase in nature makes him a master in this skill. For his 8th level feat, he'll take Elemental Overlap, which will allow him to take Ambush Bladderwort to entrap victims inside a plant. He's certainly wrapped up enemies in plants before, and if he hasn't used a pitcher plant to do so, it just feels like a wasted opportunity. I mean, come on, writers. Morphic Manipulation as a skill feat is such a fantastic fit for what a Swamp Thing can do, while only taking up a skill feat slot. I am a huge fan of taking this for him. On top of all this, his basic druid spellcasting grants him access to 3rd rank spells, which has a few good ones like Speak with Plants and Wall of Thorns, as well as more defensive options such as Soothing Blossoms and Wooden Double. From his last Ancestry feat, Swamp Thing gained the ability to speak to shrubs and trees. At 9th level, Speak with Flowers expands the plants he can converse with, adding in all types of flowering flora. Another Gate's Threshold grants him Drifting Pollen, as Swamp Thing has released hallucinogenic spores in the comics before, and this will serve as a nod to that. He took the Skill Junction for this level, kinda just to get it out of the way, giving him terrain expertise in forests. He also increases Athletics to Master. Thankfully, the player core added a wood form to the Elemental Form spell, which means that Swamp Thing can take Elemental Transformation at 10th level. This really starts to come online for this particular build when he gets to 12th level, as using this brings him more in line with his actual size and appearance in the comics. But given its limited use, it won't be the only way I look to do so. With his assurance from earlier, Swamp Thing can take Automatic Knowledge for nature, allowing him to swiftly identify plants, perhaps through an intrinsic connection to them. Just something to consider. At 11th level, this build will grab Ancestral Paragon to take Grove Harbored, as plants shouldn't want to hurt or harm their representative, and his inhuman physiology can make it difficult for poisons to affect him. He'll start increasing his survival to Expert, since the other skills he favors are currently maxed out. We return to the Druid archetype at 12th level for Expert Druid Spellcasting, granting him access to 4th rank spells. From among these, I think Petal Storm is my favorite, being a damaging area that lingers. This increases the chances for enemies to fail their saves against it, and with Swamp Thing's ability to pin down foes with his Critical Impulse Junction, or other spells such as Entangling Flora, he can keep them there to suffer the effects for longer. Unmistakable Lore as a skill feat ensures that he's not going to be making any mistakes when it comes to recalling knowledge about plants or fungi. 13th level sees our Warden of the Wilds wield a wooden mantle from his Ancestry feats, granting him a single casting per day of Mantle of the Unwavering Heart. This follows similar reasoning as Elemental Transformation, and options such as Evergreen Vitality and Towering Trunk capture his swift rejuvenation and considerable size. Also, the bonus against poisons from the former feature stacks with the bonus from his Grove Harbored feat. A fresh Gate's Threshold allows him to stoke microflora lingering in a foe's body through Witchwood Seed, while Elemental Resistance reduces the damage he takes from poison and wood effects. Nourishing Gate at 14th level was originally one that I had passed over, but it's important to make Swamp Thing an actual elemental, which led to me taking it up. Since this is a status bonus, it will stack with Grove Harbored, but not the Evergreen Vitality of his mantle. Consult the Spirits as a skill feat could very easily be flavored as our floral friend, beseeching the Parliament of Trees for guidance. The 5th rank spell slot granted by his Druid archetype is probably best filled with Nature's Pathway, allowing him to teleport between trees, increasing the distance as he heightens it. Even more than other comic book characters, the Swamp Thing is notoriously hard to kill, making Die Hard a better fit than most at 15th level. Naturally, Nature will get increased to Legendary, and a boost to Intelligence also sees him become trained in Medicine. For 16th level, he'll take Primal Breath to gain more spells from among his lower ranked slots, and then he'll grab Titan Wrestler, because he has fought titanic foes in the past that outsize even his impressive bulk. From among his 6th ranked spells, he can take Rose's Thorns, which will shred enemies trying to move through them even without a save, getting some real nice value out of it. Earlier, he took Ancestral Memories, and for his final Ancestry feat, he can take Endless Memories, representing him digging deeper into the remnants of Alec Holland. He also gains a final Gate's Threshold, which will allow him to pick up Sanguivolent Roots, which creates an area effect that damages enemies while healing allies, providing a considerable leg up for the Swamp Thing's friends. He'll also finally gain his Aura Junction, providing himself and his allies with some extra health each round. This time around, he'll increase his Athletics to Legendary. Since he grabbed Nourishing Gate at 14th level, he can take Elemental Apotheosis, which makes him a full-on Elemental. It also grants him some other neat benefits, but I mainly like this for flavor. If you want something a little more mechanically impactful while still being true to the character, I would take Rouse the Forest's Fury. I would flavor the trees as being duplicates of himself that he grew. You would then probably want to replace Nourishing Gate in such a case, probably taking Primal Breath a little bit earlier. Speaking of taking things earlier, if you didn't take Natural Medicine, I would do so now, allowing him to heal others with poultices and herbs. At 19th level, Swamp Thing takes Feather Step, since he creates a considerable amount of difficult terrain, and this will allow him to step into that terrain without issue. He'll also increase his survival to Legendary. Finally, for 20th level he will take up Master Druid Spellcasting, giving him access to 7th and 8th rank spells. The spells in these ranks aren't super solid, but he can heighten Wooden Fist, summon Planter Fungus, or Nature's Pathway to get some real good use out of them. For his final skill feat, he can take Legendary Guide, familiar with the landscapes of the woods and able to guide his companions through them with ease. A final boost to intelligence sees him become trained in Arcana. If you want to take this build into a free archetype game, he can further explore the Druid archetype, taking options such as Order Spell, Lushy Familiar, Woodland Stride, Green Empathy, or Plant Shape. An earlier Natural Medicine could also allow him to take up the Herbalist Dedication. With his freed up class feats, he should be able to squeeze in options such as Wooden Palisade and Rouse the Forest's Fury. I've conifered the extent of this build to you, which just leaves a review of what we've put together. The Swamp Thing is an Ardande Gorn phytokineticist with the elementally infused background, intended to represent his empowerment by the green. The memories of Alec Holland still live on within the Swamp Thing through his ancient and endless memories, while his heritage and ancestry reflect his floral form, though he uses elemental transformation and wooden mantle to achieve his towering height and more physical powers. He expands on his vast elemental powers as a kineticist with a druid dedication, giving him access to an array of plant and wood-based spells that aren't represented by his primary class. Nature's Pathway allows him to travel through plants, and spells such as Mantle the Unwavering Heart and Plant Form allow him to alter his physiology as needed. The former does have some self-healing options, as does his Aura Junction and Fresh Produce. He can grow defensive copies of himself with Timber Sentinel, or prepare summoned plant or fungus. His ancestry allows him to survive through photosynthesis, while Nourishing Gate and Elemental Apotheosis makes him a true elemental. Finally, his grisly ability to grow plants from inside of others can come from his Witchwood Seed, one of his many ways to control and wield plants. This protector of plant life plucks power from the petals, punishing perpetrators, pulverizing pollutants, and pruning profligates with passionate purpose. Be sure to let me know what you think of the build and what other characters you'd like to see, or even if you like the video or not. You can check out the blog for a breakdown that includes item suggestions and a fuller exploration of the build's use in a free archetype game. That, along with the Monster Monday Twitter and Discord, are linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.